and the hearts are courageous. Tonight we have, as always, my husband Billy Paxton as my co-host. And tonight in house we have John .morrin, who he is not a former Marine, because I know once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine, and a financial advisor. So we're going to hear a lot of good stuff about you and who you are and where you came from. But I'd like to start out thanking Neighborhood News Studio, Andy, behind the scenes, making this all happen. Appreciate that. He's waving his hand back there.
Yep.
So if you guys have any questions, just hop on. We will try to answer them as we go. Either my husband or Andy will have to tell me what they are, because I can't see the screen. So
I'm going to do the Facebook chat real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
That's fine. Look it up, Andy.
Yeah.
It's your area of expertise.
So welcome, John.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah,
How are you
for having me.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah, doing great. Can't complain. Appreciate you guys having me out here. And for everyone who's listening, Jamie's doing wonderful stuff at the Little Blessings Veterans Community and Outreach there. If you haven't had a chance, you have to go. She had me come down a couple months back and tour the place, and it really is a wonderful place, and you actually have to see it to understand it. So
yeah, it's not. Thank you. Yeah, it's not like what people would think, is it?
No,
when they
not
come
at
there?
all.
Yeah.
Not at all. That's exactly what you told me on the phone. Is you have to come here to see it, and I did, and I was glad I did. So,
yeah, it's pretty amazing facility. We're very blessed to be. That the Dukes have allowed us to do what we do on their property. So they have opened their arms greatly. As I told you, they are a veteran family as well. And they have been amazing and hosted us very, very nicely there, for sure. So.
Kind of like the Grand Canyon, huh?
Yeah.
When you see it, you don't believe it.
Right.
And even when you see it, you kind of go, wow, it's so surreal. And that's
absolutely.
Considering how far and how much work Jamie's put into it, it's really came a long way. There's been a lot of help. But,
So remind me how we met.
So actually, I started networking in the area with just different veterans organizations, but veteran, community members. And I was actually at Owens Community College, met with the veteran coordinator out there, and there was some business cards on display, and I just happened to grab your card and reached out to you to connect. And that's after that, you asked me out to the facility. And, but yeah, that's kind of how I got introduced to you. It was really just by the luck of the draw, picking the right card up off of the stand there at Owens. But it was good. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, me too. Now, what area of town are you from?
So I grew up in Perrysburg. I went to Perrysburg High School. I now live in Maumee with my wife. She's from the area also. So we live over in Maumee, kind of near Springfield High School.
Awesome.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
So let's start with, tell us about your military. Like, did you have any family who was in service? What led you to where you started in the military?
So I did have family members who served. My grandfather served in the Korean War, and then my uncle was in the Vietnam War. So both two guys I really looked up to. And my uncle Dan, actually, you'd love him. They're retired out in Utah. They have 10 or 12 horses. I mean, they're out there with the horses every day.
Amazing.
And he grew up in Wyoming. He was a dog handler in Vietnam.
So was he? Awesome.
He's always been around animals, loves horses. And my wife and I had a chance to go out there last year and ride their horses and tour
How beautiful is that out there, huh?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I mean, they're right on the mountains. And just,
wow.
But yeah, so growing up, I always wanted to be in the military for as long as I can remember. My favorite TV show growing up was MASH.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an Army doctor. I wanted to be an Army doctor, and that was like all through high school, like growing up. That's really what I wanted to do in the back of my mind.
I have to interrupt you. What did you like about the show?
I don't know. So when I was young, right before I started watching that show too, my dad had bought me an old Korean War surplus sleeping bag, smelled like old military gear.
Canvas.
I just loved all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just a really great show. I didn't understand it as much as a kid as I have since I've seen episodes now as an adult.
Right.
But I just that military, atmosphere and just that whole lifestyle that they were living over there in the TV show was just something that I was like, I want to be a part of that someday. It seems really really unique. And
all the people I have interviewed and have come across since I've been doing this, I've not heard one say that.
Good.
And so the reason I say that is that's why I joined. If you ask anybody why I joined, it was because of the show MASH.
Yeah, that's
their
awesome.
Work hard, play hard. What they did. Yeah, I love it.
That's cool.
Awesome. Yeah. So that was definitely.
I'm picturing it all right now. The show.
Yeah,
because
he just had it on the screen.
The theme song too. When growing up with only 3 channels on TV and where MASH fit in, and then Klinger, or right from Toledo, Tony Packles and all that. Yeah. Green Acres, not to jump ship here or anything, but Ernest Borgnine. And what was the other one? Was the other arm not MASH, but it was
oh yeah.
God darn it.
I can't think of it.
You know what I'm talking about, that other show. McHale's Navy.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was good too.
That was McHale's.
Yeah, I know. Not like MASH. You're right. Ernest Borgnine, right?
Yeah, it was
anyway,
so cool.
Don't get me going.
It was so cool when I was deployed to Iraq, right? It was like stepping into a scene from MASH, right?
Absolutely.
It was so crazy. One of the jobs that I did was I helped load and unload patients from the helicopters. And the ambulances looked just like they did in MASH. The helicopters look it is crazy. You felt like you were in a scene from MASH.
Yeah, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just excited to hear that. Yeah, that's great.
I could talk about MASH all day.
Yeah.
I know.
Good. But yeah, so that was definitely a big part of it growing up. And then I joined a program put on by the Navy called the Sea Cadets. And I was in that through junior high and high school, just getting introduced to the military. It was, 1 weekend a month, pretty much like Boy Scouts, but sponsored by the Navy. So it was a pretty
kind
cool
of like Guard
program.
almost, or reserve or something.
That's
cool.
Like JROTC, a similar thing to that. So,
that's cool.
I got introduced from like 13 to 18 of a quote unquote military experience, I guess, to kind of get me ready for it. And I actually went to college for a year directly after high school at Norwich University, which is one of the 6 senior military academies. And I had plans I wanted to get an ROTC scholarship and actually join the Navy. That was my original plan. And I was on the rugby team out there, and there was two Marines. They were both, well above college age. They were getting put through the schooling from the Marine Corps to commission. I think one was an E6 and the other one was an E7. I mean, these guys were total badasses, like on the rugby team. I mean, just men among boys.
You can tell you're pretty stocked too. Yeah.
So after talking with them, and I wasn't having any luck getting an actual ROTC slot at that point because they were downsizing the military. This was 2010. They were kind of downsizing and not offering too many ROTC appointments. So after that first year of school, being around those 2 Marines, I came back and I told my parents, I was like, I want to enlist in the Marines.
And I'm sure they were thrilled.
Yeah, not really. I mean, they knew I was going to join the military, right? But so I was at school going for engineering, and they're like, well, why don't you want to do that and go in that way? I said, no, I want to enlist in the Marines. So I dropped out of school after the first year, began that enlistment process, started working for my dad's construction company until I left for boot camp about 8 months later. And then then you're at Paris Island, and maybe I should have thought this through better.
Really?
No.
I love Paris Island.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
Yeah, but you weren't a Marine.
No, of course. I knew that was coming. But I sure sunk my teeth into it when I went there.
It was an awesome place.
Yeah,
I mean,
I did.
Full of history and just, I actually loved boot camp. I mean, every minute of it. My first letter to my parents was like, "This is awesome." Like, I can't wait to see what comes next.
Oh, that's cool.
It certainly had a lot I challenged, but
you weren't one of them sending home a whiny letter.
No.
What'd I do?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
I was loving it. Actually got a meritorious promotion out of boot camp right away to PFC for being a squad leader. So it was a really great opportunity. I was 19 at the time, so there's a lot of 18-year-old kids. Not that 19-year-old is any older, but for some reason, just the leadership aspect kind of developed then on. So
most of them are born; they're not made. It's hard to, people that lead them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you do in the military? Where did you start out your career?
Yeah, so I was a heavy equipment operator. So after Paris Island for boot camp, went to North Carolina for Marine Corps combat training. 5 weeks combat training, and then out to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, or Fort Lost in the Woods is what they call it.
Fort Lost in the Woods.
Yes.
Oh, Fort Lost in the Woods.
Yeah. Yep. So that's
I was
where
thinking Lawson or something like my dad's name. But go ahead. Yeah.
That's where the heavy equipment operators training was at, and actually all 4 branches were at that base for that. For heavy equipment operating, all 4 branches.
Makes sense. Yeah.
There.
All the equipment they could.
Training separate because everyone has different equipment, but
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, did my training there, and then immediately was sent to Okinawa, Japan, which is where I was stationed for 3.5 years.
Oh, how was that?
That was awesome. I mean, at first, it kind of hits you, you're away from home in a sense that's a lot different than being at Parris Island or Fort Leonard Wood. And, each one of those was months at a time, and never really got homesick or anything like that. It was, once you got overseas and you're like there.
Culture shock too, yeah.
Culture shock. It was really immersive because I like to think it wasn't like being stationed in California or something where you just go out in town and it's the same things you're familiar with. Each base out there is its own little community, and it's very, very military. Platoons are marching to and from the chow hall. It's not people hopping in their cars and driving and leaving every weekend. So it was a pretty interesting opportunity out there.
So how long ago was that?
So I got to Okinawa in the fall of 2012, and I got out in February of 2016.
So you've been out since this 2016.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, I did my 4 years active duty. Got out in February of 2016.
Cool. Well, thanks for your service.
Yeah.
And your uncle and your dad, right?
Grandfather.
Grandfather.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, but Okinawa, just being in a different part of the world. I went all over the Pacific while I was out there, a bunch of different countries. I mean, you know what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very cool experience, very humbling to see just how different cultures live and what they go through, and puts a lot of things in perspective.
Yeah, what we take for granted, I bet.
Yeah, when I was in Turkey, I was shocked.
Mm.
That was my very first trip overseas, like brand new back from the unit. We went to Turkey, and I was like, this culture is totally different.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is way different,
Mm-hmm.
So was Okinawa then your final destination?
So yeah, that's where I was stationed. It's originally a 2-year duty station, and they usually would rotate you back. I applied to extend for my whole length of the remainder of my contract out there. So I was in the same unit, same base for 3.5 years. Went on a lot of different deployments, humanitarian deployments to the Philippines, Thailand, South Korea. So got to go to South Korea and live in the tents and sleep on the same cots and kind of experience that same lifestyle that I grew up watching the MASH, which was pretty cool. So I spent 3 months in South Korea.
It's like a so real thing, isn't it?
You're like, it was.
Oh,
I gotta be
your grandfather or your uncle fought the Korean War?
My grandfather
did?
Yep, was in the Korean War. So being over there was very cool.
I could see that. I'm picturing it,
Yep. Yeah.
Took it kind of where he was and what he did and different things, that's cool.
Yep. Yeah. I earned the same Korean Defense Medal that he earned when he fought in the Korean War. And,
right.
I was able to go up to the DMZ and tour that and tour those facilities and kind of step foot in North Korea and those diplomatic buildings. It's a very unique experience.
That's cool.
Just felt cool being there, growing up watching MASH and my grandfather fighting.
That's what I'm saying. You were very blessed.
That was a humbling experience too, just to be over there. And
I can tell you didn't take it for granted.
No,
I can tell.
mean, you try not to when you're a 19, 20-year-old kid. You try and see the bigger picture and not
a lot of them do though.
Dumb, but
yeah,
absolutely. It was a great experience, and that was actually my first, excursion outside of Okinawa. We went to South Korea, so that was good, interesting, eye-opening experience, getting a real taste of the field. And we got there and the tents looked exactly the same from MASH. You're like, oh, 60 years later, still got the same technology.
I bet they smell like them too. Yeah.
So prior to going into the military, were you anywhere outside of this Toledo area? I mean, did you travel at all or get to go anywhere?
No.
So that was kind of like your first big move away from home. Is what I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. The school I went to was in Vermont, so I did spend a year in Vermont.
Vermont's beautiful too.
Yeah, that's really gorgeous up that way. Other than just like family trip to Florida,
right?
We went up to Niagara Falls. I had never really gone out and seen any other parts of the world. So
it's cool.
Got to see a lot of it over in the Pacific, which was awesome.
Good
That's
for you.
Great.
Yeah.
A lot
I think
of memories,
it's awesome.
huh?
Yeah, that you were able to follow sort of in
absolutely.
your grandfather's footsteps, or basically go there, because that would have meant a lot to me too.
Yeah. I have my mom actually, when I got out of so it was my mom's dad. She gave me his honorable discharge and his Korean uniform and his helmet from the Korean War. So it's pretty cool to have all his stuff.
Absolutely.
To share that connection of being there.
That is amazing.
Do you have kids?
No kids, just the wife and I.
Right.
A couple dogs.
That fur babies. Yeah, sure.
No kids for us. So we got married last year down in Florida.
Cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's my saving angel.
Say it right there into the camera.
Yeah, she knows that she's awesome.
That's cool. Good for you, brother.
Yeah.
She ain't so bad herself.
Good advice, Billy.
Well, trying. Yeah, no problem, man. I get it. Yes.
So what did you do right outside of the military then? What happened?
So that's really where the journey gets interesting. So really my last year in the Marines was when I made up my decision that I wasn't going to stay in. I had always thought I was going to do my 20 years.
Make a career.
Make a career out of it. I always wanted to be in the military. That was really the only thought I had growing up is, well, I'm going to be in the military in some way, shape, or form. And the last year in the Marines, my mentality kind of changed. And I didn't want to make a career out of it anymore, at least not active duty in the Marines. And
what changed it?
So I had a lot of great leaders out there, and this was at the time where they were pushing a lot of people out of the Marines, and I saw some of the greatest NCOs and staff NCOs get pushed out. I mean, before their 20 years retirement, forcing them out at 14, 16 years. And it just kind of made me think like, man, that I would hate to be in that position because you could see what it was doing to them. I mean,
right.
Well, there was a huge, not to get crazy on it, but there was a huge purge in the military at that time.
Yep. They
just did my math. Yep.
Yeah. They pushed a lot of people out in that time frame, and they were downsizing the Marine Corps by a good percentage too. I mean, I think they were going from 220,000 active down to like 160,000. So they really pushed a lot of people out, and that kind of changed my mind about it. Like, man, these Purple Heart recipients and combat action ribbon, my staff sergeant, he was Battle of Fallujah, 2 Purple Hearts. I mean, and they pushed him out. And I was just like, man, if they're going to do that to someone like that,
right. You're nothing to them, or so to speak.
So it just kind of, not that I had a bad taste in my mouth for the Marines. I just realized this was a good experience. I don't want to ruin it by dragging it out and something happened.
Sounds like you had a good head on your shoulder. Still do, I'm sure. But I mean, you were, again, at that age, looking at the big picture in your life is something to say.
There's a lot of time to think out there, right? So, we'd go to a country for a few months, but then you're just back on base pretty much waiting for the next place to go, 3-4 months at a time before you get the orders to go someplace else. So really there's not much to do. You're just kind of waiting around all day long, a lot of time to think and reflect. And as the years went on, I started doing that more and more, realizing, okay, I have to figure some things out here now. My contract's coming up. I didn't re-enlist. And so I got out, like I said, February of 2016, moved back home with mom and dad. I'm grateful that they let me, come back home. My father at the time was going through a lot of health issues. He had a construction company that really, due to some of the health complications he had, he broke his neck while I was in the Marines, and I worked for him for the time leading up to when I left. So when I left and then that happened, it just kind of started a snowball effect, and his business was in a tough spot. So when I first got out, I just helped him shut his business down. We finished the last couple jobs.
What type of construction? What is
concrete work?
Concrete work.
Yep. So my family's been in the local 886 Cement Masons Union. I'm a 4th generation member, so it's
sweet.
long time concrete in the family. So was doing concrete work for that summer. Helped him shut his business down. And so then I just signed up for some classes at UT in the fall of 2016. Like, well, I got to do something. I'll use the GI Bill, go to school, figure something out. Right after that, a couple of my buddies from the Marines were like, hey, you should move down to Texas with us. We're going through EMT and firefighter training down here in the spring. You should come down. So I did one semester at UT, and then I moved to Texas. But the UT was a total success because that's where I met my wife in class. So it was worth it 100%.
Yeah.
But then pretty much right after I met her, a few weeks later, I moved down to Texas with two of my buddies from the Marines. And we went through EMT and firefighter training. I'm like, okay, I'll become a firefighter. You know, that's what I'll do. I could see myself doing this. And, you know, I went through the training with them, which was awesome. Living with my same roommate from Okinawa and a buddy of mine who we went to
so
5 different countries.
You didn't
together.
take your wife with you to Texas?
No. We hadn't even started dating at that point. I mean, we were, but it was just so sudden. We just met. And, but so I did that training and started working at the emergency room to get our hours to get certified, and at the fire station. And really it was, you know, working in the emergency room, it's an emergency room, right? So you're doing a lot of extreme trauma, a lot of similar stuff in those trainings, like the combat lifesaver training and basic lifesaver that we did in the Marines applied to those. And, you know, I found myself working these shifts at the ER and at the fire station and doing CPR on people and, you know, doing a lot of stuff that I had negative experiences with on some humanitarian deployments. I was like, this really isn't really the lifestyle I want to have. This is more intense than what I wanted to do when I got out of the military, because the military is intense in its own right. So that was really my second try at trying to figure something out, because first I was doing the construction and then I went to that. But that didn't work. I moved back to Ohio. Got a job in the Cement Masons Union, working for a company. My dad knew a lot of people in the unions and all these companies. So like, oh, you know, my boy knows how to finish concrete. So he got me set up there, which was great. Which is also very important, who you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've just said that more than once. It ain't what you know, sometimes it's who you know.
Yeah. And that's really where a lot of my next opportunities came about, was just who I knew, and it was luck most of the time. So he got me in the Cement Masons Union as an apprentice, but I wasn't going through the apprentice school because they were already started at that time. But I was working on the jobs and I already knew how to finish concrete. Sure. So I was doing the journeyman work at the apprentice scale and, you know, making $14 an hour, and then they take out their dues and this and that. And I'm like, man, I'm, you know, making $200 or $300 a week here, working 50 hours. I got to figure something else out. And actually, that's when I got in acquaintance with my wife's brother. He's quite a bit older than her, and he worked at the Port of Toledo. And I started talking to him because I was a heavy equipment operator in the Marines. I had my crane license. They were looking for crane operators. So then, you know, again, it's who you know. I happened to meet him and be dating his sister at the time. So he gave me an opportunity. I went out there. They had me out there. I ran some equipment for them, showed them that I could run the equipment.
Sure.
I had all the licenses in the military. They don't necessarily transfer to the civilian required licenses. So they actually paid for me to go down and get the certifications that I needed to run the cranes there. And so now I'm working at the Port of Toledo, and it's great. You know, it's good money, long hours, lots of hours, all the overtime you could ask for. Well, at this point, Courtney, who's my wife, we bought a house together, kind of started, you know, settling down, wanted to start a family, you know, things like that. And I'm working 70 hours a week, every weekend in the summertime, night shifts, swing shifts, you know, whatever they needed, you did, because, you know, that's just the military way. You know, if they ask you to work for a 16-hour shift, and well, all right, yeah, that's what you do, because that's what you do.
And once they found out you did or would, then you were the man, right?
Yeah. And, the problem with that sometimes is you can work that shift, right? And they ask you to work 16 hours and you do it. And if at the end of that 16 hours, they ask you to work a 17th and you don't do it, and you're just like, in their eyes, you're not putting out the effort.
Right.
It can be frustrating for sure. Actually, a lot of veterans work there. Two of the other crane operators were in I think it's the 200th Red Horse. Yeah. So two of the crane operators were in the Red Horse at the time. So a couple other military guys, which was nice. They were still actually in the Guard at that point too. So they were balancing a lot also. But 3 out of the 6 crane operators were all military. So it was pretty cool. But just wasn't really conducive to the goals I had as far as getting married to her, and we bought a house, and I wanted to start to kind of create a more stable life. And there was a lot of legal troubles going on with different unions at the port and the company, and each one's trying to pull you in and drag you to their side. And I didn't want anything to do with that. I wanted to show up and work.
Right.
I'd already been in a union, and there was no problems in that one. And then this one, there was 3 different unions all suing each other and suing the company. And I'm like, I don't want to be any part of this. So I actually used my heavy equipment knowledge to find my next job, which was working at a heavy equipment dealership. So this whole time also, I was going to school online with the GI Bill to get my business degree, slowly chipping away at that. Doing classes when I could, but working full time, taking online classes. It's while trying to be a husband and things like that.
Wow, you're playing full.
It was a lot to balance.
So what equipment dealership did you work for? I had to ask that.
So I took a job at Southeastern Equipment in Perrysburg.
Sure.
I
real well.
was one of the department managers there, which was pretty cool. I had one staff member. I worked there for about a year and a half. Kept going to school for business, and I was learning more of the business side of things, and I was able to use what I learned in the Marines as a heavy equipment operator to bridge into business. I was like, well, I've never really done anything business wise, but I know heavy equipment, and here's the way I could be in heavy equipment, but on the business end of it. So that was very cool. I learned a lot. I knew it was a stepping stone though, as pretty much as soon as I started, just with the company atmosphere and really no place to move up. That was one thing about the Marines or the military that almost spoils you is there is clear paths to advancement. They tell you what you need to do, what trainings, what schooling, how much time you have to put in. And if you do those things and do what you're supposed to do and work hard, you will get to the next level. I mean, obviously as you get higher, it's not a guarantee or anything like that.
But you're always working towards something.
You
know
can see
what
it
is.
You can see that.
There is a promotion that you can work towards, and you can put all your effort towards.
And in the civilian world,
no, there's not, right? And that's a big shock too. You're used, at least me, I'm sure you and many others, we're very used to this structured chain of command. Exactly who you answer to, who answers to you, and even the next step up and so on. And everyone has their place and their role. And in the civilian world, it's just gone, right? Like, that doesn't exist.
Right.
And that's difficult. And every job I went through, that was always a challenge for me, was just the lack of structure, which not that structure is always a good thing. It can be bad if it becomes micromanaging and things like that. But a defined structure to where you're able to operate within it is really what I needed. And no job I could find really had that aside from the firefighting. That definitely was structured and very similar. But.
So I just want to jump in and we had talked about this when we first met, right? So I want people to know 65% of veterans either quit or get fired within their first 2 years of employment, right? And it is really based upon that transition into that environment, right? A lot of what happens is everybody gets so excited when they think they're hiring this veteran, right? They're like, have this structured, well-disciplined veteran, right? Well, yes, they do. But if they don't tell you all the rules of engagement, right? And if they don't tell you what you need to do very clearly it's difficult for a lot of veterans, right?
Mhm.
Because again, we know exactly what we're doing, exactly where we're going, and how to get there, right? In the military. And so a lot of civilian employers, struggle with that, right? And it is very difficult for the enlisted, or not the enlisted, but the military transition into that civilian world in that way.
Yeah. Because
And you had this was your 6th job or 5th job by now.
Yeah, at that point, 1, 2. Yeah, that would be my 5th job at the heavy equipment dealership
Right.
in less than 3 years.
Mhm.
He was explaining it very well.
Yeah.
Exactly with what I've been learning. Some of it I knew, but you were 20 some years in it. So I haven't learned it till you got out, and with this program with little blessings and everything, and veterans like yourself are speaking exactly what you just said.
Well, we don't know it till you get out.
That's it.
You don't think that that's going to be a thing.
No, you're like, oh yeah,
I'm
man.
gung-ho, like,
and I've seen
get this job.
Yep.
And then you get
It's
in
terrible.
and just everything's completely different.
Yep.
And so many things that you never thought of being impactful to how you approach a job start to come up. Seeing someone else not hold to the same standard that you're being held to, whereas in the military, everyone's held to a standard.
Sure.
And if they're
The
not,
same standard.
the same standard,
Yes.
right? It's universal. And
Yep.
if someone's not at that standard, whatever, whether it's the squad level, platoon level, company, they bring the person up to that standard, whether it's through, mass
all kinds of, I was just going to say, there's a lot of
pure
incentives.
intervention.
Yes.
But everyone gets to that standard and stays and operates there. And, those standards don't exist in the civilian workforce. They do, but to an extent, but they're really not the same. And that was definitely something I struggled with. And I started struggling with all these different aspects of these civilian jobs. And, one by itself isn't that big a deal, but you start adding them all on top of each other. And I was getting very discouraged, like on Indeed every day, like just combing through jobs, and so many of them, like, oh, I could try that. I could, I'll try this, I'll try that. But I knew it would just be the same as everything else I'd already done. It maybe would last for a year or two. I'd gain some experience, but I'd just be moving on and in the same position because I just kept getting discouraged, job after job. Putting in the effort that you put in the military just to see nothing kind of come about that, because there's no standards being adhered to. There's no path forward. There's nothing.
You explained that quite well, the path to promotion or advancement. And you're right about that. And everything you've been saying so far, I can see it as even on the employee side. When my dad or if somebody would come to the work and, a military, you'd feel that what we're talking about. But as so many people out there are listening and see that, I think that employers need to see this as well, because you're right. They don't understand.
Yeah. And it's tough too, because there's so many jobs out there and companies where there isn't a lot of places to grow. Right. And that's not really necessarily their fault or the company's fault. If it's a smaller company and there's nowhere to go, there's really nowhere to go.
Right.
And that's something maybe we're spoiled with in the military is there's always somewhere to go. There's always something.
Well, look how big that employer is.
Yeah,
when we look at that, that's a huge employer.
Exactly.
The military. So
and that and so it really just fostered this sense of like I was just very stagnant at every position I went into. Even if I look back, each one was kind of a step up in a way from the job before it, whether it was income wise or title wise, but none of that really mattered.
I was just say, how long did it take you to see that view though?
Till quite recently, actually, you know, when I,
not as you were doing
no,
it.
no, correct. Yeah. So I never realized that each one was a step up and that I actually was kind of moving forward in life. But really it just felt like a stagnant couple years where I just bounced from job to job.
So was there mental struggles with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I said, all those little things start kind of stacking up on top of each other. And obviously there's the regular stresses of life that come around too. And things from, you know, military experiences and things like that. And it was really a couple year period where, things were going great. I got engaged, we bought a house, then we got married last year. But the whole time, you just felt like you were struggling still. No one really gets it. You can't talk to anyone about why you're not happy at this job. Like, you tell your friends and family, oh, I just got this new job, and you're still not happy with it. You want to leave shortly after you got there. You're already looking for something else. And, no one can understand why aren't you happy with this opportunity, or why aren't you happy with what's going on in your life right now? And that can be tough, because you feel like there's not too many people you can reach out to. And even like the VA, I've talked to people at the VA, and, they definitely are a good resource for veterans, and a lot of great things there. But really, it wasn't until I started reconnecting with a lot of my buddies from the Marines that
veteran to veteran.
Things started kind of falling back into order, so to speak.
Right.
I was able to figure out my lane a little bit better. And really also what helped with that is I started my own company.
Yeah.
With the help of my dad. Like I said, he had his own concrete company. So we had the blueprint. So 2 years ago, January 1st, 2019, I started a concrete company. While I was working at the heavy equipment dealership, I was like, I had only been there for 6 months, and I knew this wasn't going to be, this was a stepping stone. I'll learn what I can learn from it.
Right.
It's income from my way to provide for my family, but I needed something else.
Well, and it's preparing you for the big picture.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I needed some sort of mental stimulation to where I felt like I was doing something and working towards reaching my potential,
right.
At least putting out what I know I'm capable of putting out, which from when I got out of the Marines, I never had an opportunity where I could put that same effort and feel like it was not recognized, but that I was getting something from that.
Sure.
You put max effort in the military, you get, meritorious
well, you're a man, you played
yeah.
rugby, and you're a Marine, you're not a type A, but I can see exactly what, some people don't get that.
Yeah.
Some people are very passive and okay working at Jeep in a that type of setting, but some people aren't. So about the company you started.
But when you serve your country, right, you're serving something so much bigger than yourself,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you go to work at another company, you're like
Southeastern,
you, like in the military, even on the days when you're not doing anything, you're a part of something. And so those days where you didn't do much, or a couple slow weeks in the motor pool, whatever, they don't matter in that same sense, because you're still a part of this organization that is meaningful and impactful. And it doesn't matter that you didn't do anything that week, because on that Friday you might get a call that you have to go to the Philippines because they just got hit with a typhoon. You got to you're leaving in 24 hours for a humanitarian mission. So there was always that sense of, even though I'm not doing anything today necessarily, I know I'm a part of something. But then in the civilian side, you have days like that or weeks, and they string together, and you're in the company you do, whatever they may service in the community. It's like, well, this really isn't anything, like I'm not a part of something bigger that makes me feel like
that's a lot to live up to, like what Jamie just said about working for the mill. So about your concrete company you started then.
Yeah.
You said you had the blueprint.
Yep. So I'd spent a lot of time talking with my dad, and he helped me, first steps as far as the legal side of things, establishing a business and opening all the correct accounts and everything that you need to do it the right way. And then I just kind of grassroots put some ads in the paper, reached out to people I knew, and slowly started getting jobs and building a nice little side business. Me and my dad did most of the work. A couple other guys would come in on bigger pours, and a lot of patios and driveways, things like that, just small residential concrete jobs. And then started 2020, February came around. I was still at the heavy equipment dealership, kind of right before COVID hit. I just started lining up jobs. I mean, like, word of mouth started taking off, and I had like 3-4 months worth of work lined up, and I was still working full time. My dad was working full time as a truck driver, and we're balancing all these side jobs. And, we really did a lot of projects. I mean, the 2 years in the company, or with the company. It was really successful. Like, I was able to help my family out, my dad's family out financially with a lot of things because we were making all this extra money. And since it was a side business, we kept reinvesting it, buying equipment and tools. And I mean, you know how it is. You need 1 million tools before you can even do the job. And
then when you get to the job, you might need this one because this job requires that, besides the breakage and different things. But so then how did you get to the financial?
Yeah. So
right?
Yeah,
I got you. Okay.
So I enjoyed
man.
doing that.
Both.
I enjoyed doing the concrete work, having my own business. And actually, so I quit working at the dealership in March. I didn't have another job lined up. I didn't have this finance thing lined up. But I was at a point where I was like, I'm not going to work for someone else anymore. I'm going to find a way to make it on my own. And this whole time I had still been going to school.
And still doing the concrete job.
Yep. Yeah. Still doing the concrete job. Doing the
you
jobs.
had some irons going there, bud.
Yeah. I mean, you could ask my wife. It was a lot. I mean, working every Saturday, Sunday. When I got home from my job at 4, I'd load up the truck, switch clothes, and be gone till 8 o'clock on the jobs. And then every Saturday, Sunday. I mean, there was a 2 or 3 month period where we worked every Saturday and Sunday, just trying to knock these jobs out, staying on top of it. And so I quit my job at the dealership. I didn't have my next job lined up, or I didn't know really what was going to come next, but I knew here's something I can at least put my effort into, and I'm seeing those direct results. The more effort I put in, the more I get out of it in return, which is really something that I learned in the military, right? If you work harder, your results are better, essentially. And I got to a point where I started thinking, I knew I didn't want to pour concrete for the rest of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with that. My father's been in the Cement Masons Union for almost 40 years. That's a good
living.
My uncle's grandpa, my great-grandpa was a charter member of the local 886. He was one of the founding members.
Wow.
So I have a lot of respect for all those types of jobs, and I've been doing them my whole life. But I knew I didn't want to pour concrete for the rest of my life, I knew I at least wanted to take a shot at something else because I could always come back to this.
Right.
I could always go operate equipment, right? I know I can do that. So as my schooling was kind of finishing up and I was taking my last semesters, I found this opportunity to become a financial advisor and, start my own practice, which it's your own business, the same skills that I learned in my construction company of running it yourself and actually owning it. Owning every single dollar that's coming in and out, handling payroll, handling all these things, really set me up to where when this opportunity came about, it all kind of clicked, right? So I've always enjoyed money and finances. I always had spreadsheets going for my own money, my own situations, opening different accounts, experimenting here and there. Giving advice to my friends while we were in the military, oh, you guys should, open this CD, or, I was thinking small at that point because at boot camp, they're like, oh, you can open this CD. And I'm like, oh, I'll do that. Like, whatever. I don't even know what that is at this point. Like, oh, you should put money here and do this. And like the Navy Fed guys there, like your second day at boot camp, you're like, okay, like, I don't know any better. But it started paying off like towards the end of my enlistment. I had all this money saved up because, well, what are you going to spend money on in Okinawa? You don't need anything. You're living in the barracks. You don't have a car. You don't have a cell phone. You don't have anything. You go to South Korea for a few months. You come back. You haven't spent $1 for 3 months. And, a lot of guys, you see them, they're paid on Friday, broke on Sunday type of thing. And, I knew that wasn't going to be me. But anyway, so I just started enjoying finance. And money, and I just liked it. If I save and I'm disciplined, I can buy this for myself. I thought it was cool. So fast forward to this year, I'm running the construction company full time, and it got to a point where, okay, I either need to dive headfirst into this because that's what needs to happen to keep that moving, or I need to try something else. And so I took a shot and I launched this financial planning practice with Northwestern Mutual, and it's been awesome. Yeah, it all kind of clicked once this opportunity came about. And it's funny too, because it clicked and then it didn't. And it was actually another veteran who reminded me of why it clicked and how this all comes together. And I never met her in person. She was retired from the Navy, 22 years, senior chief in the Navy, and she works at Northwestern Mutual. Well, I got connected with her through my boss's boss, because he's associated with the Lone Survivor Foundation. He's the national treasurer, which is Mark Luttrell.
Marcus Luttrell, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's his foundation.
Right on.
So long story short, I got connected with her, and she kind of gave me some mentorship, when I was in a lower spot, as far as just still not having the things with the jobs click again. And I was like, man, it was clicking when I was with my own business. This was supposed to be my own business. It doesn't feel that way. Well, I talked with her. She gave me a lot of great motivation and just reminded me, you're a military person, you need to get back to that. And so really the way my life kind of got better was by reverting back to how it was in the military. I started structuring my day. I started, I came up with SOPs for my practice, and I did all these things to
SOP,
standard operating procedures.
Okay. Yeah.
Something that I
pretty
needed,
standard, but
so I needed to create my own structure, because
yeah.
I looked back on my life. Where was I the best?
I see you.
And
I see that in her.
Yeah.
What you just
absolutely.
said. Mm-hmm.
Like where was I doing the best in my life? Where did I feel the best? Well, it was when I was in a structure, and it was when I had all these structures in place to where I could thrive within that environment. So I had to create my own structures. And once I did that, I'm still working on that. That's not an instantaneous process, but
we're all a work in progress. But
just developing routines, structures, having a standard calendar almost to where I know what I'm doing when I wake up to, this.
Sounds like you're holding yourself accountable to a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely. I had to get back to.
So she explained all that to you, and then once you seen that, it really helps.
It all kind of came back into focus.
That's cool.
I had a lot of time too. Actually, just this last month, I came down with COVID.
Oh wow!
And for about 3 weeks, I was pretty much felt like I got hit by a bus. Either I was sleeping for 12 or 14 hours, or just laying on the couch the rest of the day, for about 2 or 3 weeks. So I couldn't work from home. I couldn't do anything, and I had a lot of time to think during that time. Also help refine some of these structures, and actually that was a really tough time, just going through that little bit of COVID, because all that going back to isolation and you're stuck at home. My wife was there and she was wonderful, but mentally it just became a lot. All I've been doing for 3 weeks is laying on the couch, and so a lot of hurdles started building back up in my mind. And I talked with her. Her name's Tori, and from Texas, and she kind of made me pull myself up by the bootstraps.
She is something else, though, ain't she? I've listened to her talk a few different times.
Yeah.
She's something, man. No kidding.
Very well known in the veteran community, and she's doing wonderful things. It took 3 years, 6 different jobs, and then ultimately just getting in connection with another veteran to help me focus everything,
to line it up.
Pretty much. Well, 4 years actually. And it really wasn't until I had those conversations with her and started working in my practice with a lot of other veterans, to where I started, feeling like, okay, I found something here. This is what I want to be doing. I'm finally at a position where I can serve people other than myself in a way that's impactful to their lives. And I can create this structure on my terms and thrive within it. So that's what led me to where I'm at now. long story, but
no, it's
no. I mean, the reason that I love it, right, is because it's a journey, right? So people who don't understand it, right? Civilian sector might be like, oh my gosh, when's this guy gonna stop, right? Any military person's like, yes.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
On that note,
I'm
I've
going
seen
over
it, yeah.
each hurdle, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Understanding the pain and the anguish along the way. Like, I just, and then even like when you just said, I've been out for 3 years, right? July was 3 years. And so much of what you just said there, as far as like that routine of that calendar, right?
Yeah.
That is a piece that I am trying to put into play with myself that I know is so critical, right? And I didn't understand. I mean, I knew it was critical because I'm just structured that way, right? But by you saying, get back to what you know, right? That's what I know.
Yeah.
But that was amazing for me to hear that, right? Yeah. So I love that, because if I could have I like on Mondays, I know that I do this. On Tuesdays, I do this, right? I know sometimes there's some flex in there a little bit, but if I can have my schedule.
Yeah, I saw you the whole time. When he said that, and that's why I asked that SO, what was it again?
SOPs, standard operating procedures.
Yeah. He was saying that. I was seeing where, just in the last, you've always had structure, but how you've put together and how you are in the mornings and, just how you are, which is fine. I'm just saying, but I could see exactly. And that's what we're saying, what this show's all about too, is the viewers are going to see that. And now let's let us to the financial, how you can help. And I like that his last thing was helping others with what you've learned to get to this point.
Yeah. That's also a big piece of where I finally feel like I'm doing something that's worth it. Right. Like even in construction, it's great. You work for a couple days or a week and then the project's finished and you have a finished piece. Yeah. But here with what I'm doing now, about 80% of my clients are veterans. And ultimately that's really the space I'm wanting to move into.
It's because we know it.
Yeah, right.
Right. And we can connect with them.
Instant connection and the guard the barriers come down and you're able to talk to someone comfortably and relate to them instantly on some level, regardless of branch of service, time in, what age. There's just a bond that's
I was gonna say commonality, yes.
Yeah, it's instantly there and
brother in arms or whatever, right?
You can start there and grow from that, but you always have that starting point.
Yeah. That's why we talk about in our program, right? It's a veteran to veteran instant connection, right? Because we can't start with the civilian. We have to start with the veteran, right? And it's amazing. So
yeah, I think too in that regards, almost with everything that we see nowadays, going back to the Marcus Luttrell, like the movie The Lone Survivor, American Sniper. I think I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I think a lot of civilians think that unless you were, one of those Navy SEALs doing something, then you're fine. You don't have any problems. Hollywood and video games think like, well, 99% of people's military experiences is not like Call of Duty. It's not like, American Sniper. That's not the reality of it. And I think it puts veterans in a tough spot because they feel, well, I wasn't one of those guys, so I don't have an excuse to be feeling down about something or having problems with an experience I went through because, he, look what he did on a mountainside.
Yeah, or
every single one
heaven
of them.
forbid the people that have paid a price with some, lost a finger or any of that. And I know, Jamie, you said that when you went to how first experiences like with the VA and how you were looked at. Oh, you were just a guardsman, or you were just this. Well, like you almost didn't count. Which is unfair.
Well, but and even
still
with that,
going to Iraq like you did,
right? But what he's saying is we know that there's others who, have been in worse situations, right?
Absolutely.
And so we have a hard time swallowing that, and then
suck it up type of thing. Yeah. No, I hear you. I said it today to the lady. I mean, what I'm going through or whatever. There's people got a whole lot worse than me. Yeah. So I'm not going to complain too much about my day today, but
I think it's tough though, because it kind of puts a veteran in a box
to
where they feel, I don't necessarily have a right to complain about anything or a right to say I'm feeling really bad about this or this is bothering me from back then, whatever the case may be. I think that's where that veteran to veteran connection does help, because 99% of veterans didn't have that American Sniper experience, and it's easier to relate to someone at least who's a veteran, because that they understand that you didn't have to go through that to be going through something, right? And I think that's important because especially for all the post 9/11 veterans, I mean, that's a 19 years time span, right? So veterans in 2002, 2003, the Battle of Fallujah, are in a lot different space than the 2017 veteran whose just experience was different. Yeah, they might have been 1 year old in the Battle of Fallujah or something like that. So it's important that I think both civilians and other veterans understand that you don't have to be the Navy SEAL winning the Medal of Honor to be going through something mentally to where you're struggling, because it can be something as simple as you got out of the military and now you're bouncing around jobs, and that's tough on you. Right?
That transition.
Yeah, the transition alone is tough for everybody. Even if you are lucky and you hit it right out of the park on your first job and it's great, it's still a struggle to adjust.
But you don't know that transition, right, until you're in it. Yeah. Right. And then you're like, what is wrong with me? Right. You're like, why can't I figure things out? Why do I feel this mess? Why is this heavy load? Like all of this negativity, right? You're just like, oh, how do I figure it out? Fish out of water type of thing, right? And you're just like, oh, this is terrible. And you don't know that it's a transition thing, right? Because nobody's told you that it's going to be like that. They're like, hey, we could teach you how to fill out a resume.
Yeah. You get like a week or two right before you get out. Here's how you put a resume together, and here's like, oh, where's civilian outfit with a tie? You're like, what is this going to help me for?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's definitely something that you have to just kind of go through as the years go on from transitioning point of view. But it's hard at the time because, each chapter is being written in that moment and you feel like it could be the end of the book. Right. But then looking back, you're like, oh, it was just the end of one chapter.
Right.
The next chapter got better.
Right. Yeah.
Or even if the next chapter got worse, I know the story's going to get better.
Right.
But that's tough to keep at the front of your mind.
Sure.
Well, we are at the tail end of our show. Sadly, I know this hours went by so fast. But the really good part is that I want our viewers to know is you and I have talked about setting up seminars or opportunities where and this is a building that we would have them in, right? So you would come here and you would talk to the veterans about finances and get them on on par, whatever they need, answer their questions. Again, a veteran to veteran connection. So I'm super excited that you were here. I'm super excited that I've met you. I'm glad you're going to be an amazing resource, probably to many.
So what is the financial advising like? Is it for home loans or just how to put your money into CDs, stuff like that?
Really, it's a very holistic approach, right? So everyone's situation is different in life. So the first thing we have to do is we just have to have a conversation. What are your goals? What are you working towards? And where are you at right now? For some people, our conversations are very educational. It's around developing a budget, working within that budget, some saving strategies, getting out of debt. Other people at different stages in life, now it's, okay, where do we invest our money? How do we protect ourselves, our families? Different risk management pieces all the way to, I'm retiring next month. What do I have to do to make sure I'm in the right spot?
So it's a pretty broad spectrum.
Yeah. Planning your finances from start to finish.
It's a fully holistic approach. I mean,
sweet.
Yeah.
Anywhere that someone's at. And the first thing I do with all my veterans clients too is I ask them what they've done with the VA, right? Like that's the first step. I make sure they're aware of their resources. And I keep trying to network with as many great organizations as possible. So when I come across someone who's in need of something, I know which direction to point them at, right?
Because Jamie is networking and this whole program, right?
Yeah. Because there's everyone can help in some way, but
Sure.
I don't think everyone can help in every way.
Right. No,
I know what my
Right.
line is where
Yeah.
I can help a
Mhm.
veteran.
Yep.
Back to the
but
what you know, who you know.
outside of that,
Mhm.
I want to have a network established to where, okay, I can't help you. I know who can. Let's
Right.
talk to them.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
So that,
it. Yeah.
that's really the first step with the veterans is just
Mhm.
making sure that they're aware of everything they've earned,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of those have big financial impacts on our lives.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's really just relationship building,
Mhm.
seeing what someone, each individual situation is different, what I can do to help them, and that's where we start.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, John, for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Yeah, your
Appreciate
story
you
was
sharing your
awesome, man.
story. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and we will get all this information out, his phone number, email, all that kind of contact information for you. So you guys have a great night, and we will see you next week.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.